cool stories.
"Doctor, talk to me. How did it go?" Big Papa asked, pacing back and forth in his living room, a glass of whiskey in hand. "Not good, Papa. We only got 5, Dr. Maxwell responded quietly from the other end of the line. Big Papa snapped. 5? Out of 20? Yes, only 5 usable kidneys. The rest were either damaged, diseased, or completely useless, Dr. Maxwell responded. What the hell are you saying, Max? These girls looked fresh. They looked fresh on the outside, but their organs, Papa, the youth are deteriorating. Alcohol, pills, multiple sex partners, bad food habits, it's killing them from the inside. Big Papa took a deep breath, his face twisted in frustration. So you're telling me we wasted 20 bodies and got only 5 usable organs? That's what I'm saying. One had a failing liver, another had a congenital heart condition. There was even a girl with 3 STIs and a partially collapsed lung. Big Papa's tone darkened. Jesus Christ, these girls, they act like they have their whole lives ahead of them, but they're walking corpses. I agree. If I transplant any of these diseased organs to our buyers in Europe, it'll be the end of both them. And us. Don't worry, Max, I'll get you more. I know where to find them. University campuses, cheating wives, even pastors' wives playing side chick at hotels. You'd be shocked how easy it is. They all want one thing. Money, Dr. Maxwell muttered. Exactly, and I've got more than enough to lure them in. Dr. Maxwell hesitated for a moment before adding, We're also running low on the scopolamine. Just a heads up. I'll call Raphael, Big Papa said without missing a beat. It was called scopolamine. In the underworld, they called it the devil's breath, a name it earned for its terrifying effect on victims. Once inhaled or absorbed through the skin, it didn't knock you out. It didn't make you hallucinate. It erased your free will. Victims became blank slates, highly suggestible, easily manipulated. You could tell them to give you all their money, take off their clothes, or walk into a dark van, and they would obey, smiling, cooperative, unaware. They'd wake up hours later with no memory of what they'd done. Rafael Torres, a former chemist from Medellin, Colombia, was the sole supplier to Big Papa's syndicate in Ghana. He was precise, discreet, and had no patience for chaos. His lab was hidden inside an abandoned leather workshop in the outskirts of Medellin, masked as a fragrance export company. That morning, Raphael was overseeing the packaging of a new shipment when a knock came on the door. His assistant handed him a burner phone. He answered casually. Hello, Papa. You're calling earlier than I expected? I need more of the devil's breath, Big Papa said flatly. More devil's breath, huh? Raphael chuckled. Did the last batch stop working? The girls are getting harder to control. Stronger willpower. I need something stronger, something that hits quicker. Ah. You want the concentrated dose, Raphael said, stroking his chin. Okay, I'll lace it in powder form. Easily applied to currency notes, lip gloss, even napkins. Same formula, but heavier hit. When can it get here? 2 days. Same route. Shipping from Cartagena. Your man meets the crate at Tema Port. Standard protocol. He'll be there. Remember, Papa, this drug leaves no trace. But if your people get sloppy... I know the risk, Big Papa interrupted. That's why I trust only you. Raphael grinned, lowering the phone. Then consider it done. You'll get your drug. The first one was Vanessa. 23, university student, pretty like a poster girl for heartbreak. She loved soft life, the type of girl who believed in affirmations, lip gloss, and Dubai trips funded by blessers. Her boyfriend? Some broke, serious-looking guy always carrying a laptop around. But Vanessa had dreams, big ones, and dreams cost money. She met Big Papa at a lounge in East Legon. It was one of those dimly lit, neon-type places with jazz playing low and waitresses with fake smiles. She walked in with her friend, Linda. Who's that guy? Vanessa whispered, eyeing the man in the white agbada, gold chain, and Versace shades. At night. Linda smirked. Some rich fat guy? They say he owns properties all over the place. Big Papa noticed her almost immediately. He waved a waiter over, whispered something, and seconds later the waiter returned with 2 glasses of wine. "This is from the gentleman at the VIP booth," the waiter said. Vanessa chuckled. "Classy." Linda leaned in. "You better not go, you've got a man." Vanessa rolled her eyes. A man with 0 bank balance. She got up, strutted confidently toward Big Papa. "Thanks for the drink," she said. Big Papa smiled. "You're welcome, my dear. But to be honest, I only paid for the wine because I didn't know how to pay for your presence." Vanessa blushed. She was already impressed. They talked for half an hour. He told her about his real estate business, his trips to Monaco, and how he was tired of girls with fake designer and 0 ambition. "You're different," he told her. "I can see it in your eyes." She giggled. "You're very observant. You deserve more, Vanessa. I can give you more, if you trust me." Then came the subtle move. He reached over with a folded tissue and said, "You've got something right there by your lip. Let me help." She didn't hesitate. He gently dabbed her lower lip. "Thank you," she smiled. But that wasn't tissue. That was scopolamine, Raphael's special dust, odorless and nearly invisible. All it took was light contact. Within 5 minutes, she began blinking more than usual. "I feel a little light-headed," she said, giggling. Big Papa watched her carefully. "Do you still trust me?" he asked. "Yes," she replied in a dreamy tone. "Will you come with me?" "Yes." They arrived at the isolated compound on the outskirts of Accra. It looked abandoned, like a chicken farm that ran out of birds. Dr. Maxwell stood ready in surgical scrubs. "She's good to go?" he asked. Big Papa nodded. "Drug took full effect. She's not even blinking right." Maxwell examined her. "Vital signs are stable. We'll take 1 kidney, leave the other. She'll survive." The procedure lasted 2 hours. Vanessa was stitched up and sedated. 2 days later, she woke up in a neat hotel room, back sore, head pounding. An envelope lay on the nightstand, 15,000 CDs in crisp notes. No number, no note, just money and pain. She told no one, not her boyfriend, not her friends. In her mind, she had simply blacked out after a night of drinking. The envelope? Probably a gift from a mysterious sponsor. The second victim was Delilah, 32, married, educated, lonely. Her husband was always away on business trips. She wanted more attention, more sex, more everything. She met Big Papa at a rooftop pool bar. "Married and drinking alone?" he asked. "Sometimes loneliness needs ice," she replied, clinking her glass. He laughed. "I like you already." She wasn't cheap. She was classy, the type that wore silk robes and Chanel perfume. But her eyes told the truth. She craved someone who would look at her the way her husband no longer did. "I like to be spoiled," she said later, swaying slightly to the music. "Then allow me," Big Papa replied. "Ever been in a Maybach?" They drove to an Airbnb. She thought they were going to have wild sex. Instead, he poured her wine and complimented her thighs. Then he handed her a 50 CD note. "Pay the waiter," he smiled. "There's no waiter," she laughed. "Pretend." She laughed harder and grabbed the note. Within minutes, her eyes glazed. "You're so handsome," she said. "Take me." "I will." At the facility, Dr. Maxwell looked at her like a butcher studying beef. "She's got damage in 1 kidney. We take the good one." "She'll know," Big Papa said. "She won't remember, and if she does, who'll believe her?" Delilah went home the next day with vague memories and fear she couldn't explain. Her body hurt, her soul too, but she told herself it was probably just a hangover. Her husband returned from a trip 2 days later. "You all right?" he asked. "I'm fine," she said, staring blankly into space. The third victim shocked even Dr. Maxwell. Grace, 36. First Lady of Spiritfire International Ministries. Wife of Pastor Daniel Oteng, sermon coordinator, choir sponsor, prayer warrior. But she had a dark side. She met Big Papa through Instagram DMs. She liked his watch. He liked her cleavage. They met discreetly at a private lounge. My husband thinks I'm at an all-night, she giggled. Well, let's make it a night worth lying for, Big Papa whispered. She drank half a cocktail. Then he handed her a strawberry lollipop. Try this, he said, imported from Colombia, very sweet. The tip was soaked in the same powdered poison Raphael had packaged in Accra. 1 lick, 2 licks. Her posture changed. Her smile faded. Do you love me? Big Papa asked softly. Yes, she replied, eyes distant. Will you follow me anywhere? Yes. Dr. Maxwell watched her later that night and sighed. She's not even blinking, he murmured. Pastor's wife? No kidneys left untouched, Big Papa said coldly. She'll die if we take both. Then make it quick. Grace's body was found weeks later near a bridge. No ID, no phone, no name. Her church held a vigil. The congregation cried. The pastor blamed ritualists. Big Papa drank champagne that night and ordered fresh girls from Osu. Her name was Priscilla Mensah, 27. A vibrant hairdresser from Teshi with big dreams of owning a luxury spa someday. Her small salon barely brought in enough to pay rent, but she was always cheerful, always hopeful. Big Papa first saw her while driving past the salon. She was outside, arguing with a supplier over the cost of imported Brazilian wigs. He watched her from a distance, intrigued. She had the look, pretty, soft-spoken, and visibly struggling with the weight of life. He snapped a photo of the shop sign, Prisclam Studio, and another of her through the glass window. Later that night, with a glass of whiskey in hand and a cigar between his lips, he began digging. On Instagram he searched #Prisclam and found a local page. Her name popped up within seconds at Miss Prisclam. Her page was a mosaic of bold hairstyles, client transformations, and subtle hints of struggle. Captions like, "Hustle must pay one day and can't wait to level up." He smiled to himself. The hunt had begun. She had just 1,200 followers, easy prey. The next day, she got a DM on Instagram. "You're too brilliant to be stuck behind a salon counter. What if I told you I could fund your spa?" She blinked at the message, her heart skipping. The profile, at luxury patron, full of pictures of expensive watches, cars, wine, and vacations in Dubai. She hesitated, then replied, "Tell me more." That evening, she met him at La Palm Royale Beach Hotel. Big Papa was all elegance, dripping in cologne and confidence. His gold rings glistened as he poured her wine. "You deserve more, Priscilla," he said, cutting into his steak. "You've been handed scraps all your life. I want to change that." She listened, wide-eyed. "I just need an opportunity." He smiled. "And I just need loyalty. I fund the spa, you make me proud. We win together." It sounded too good to be true. But desperation has a way of blinding people. By the time dessert came, her drink had been laced. Scopolamine. Priscilla didn't even realize how her smile faded into an eerie calm. She just nodded to every word he said. "Do you trust me?" Big Papa asked. "Yes," she replied softly. "Good. Now come with me. Let's start your new life." They drove in silence to a hidden facility about an hour from Accra, a one-story compound nestled deep in an overgrown bushy area near Ada. The building looked abandoned from the outside, but the inside was clean and cold, lit with surgical lights and humming freezers. Dr. Maxwell was already waiting. "Who's this?" he asked. "A fighter," Big Papa answered. "She wants luxury. Let's give her one final taste." Dr. Maxwell examined her. "Pulse is steady. She's in deep. Perfect candidate." Priscilla sat still in the surgical chair, her eyes open but empty. She didn't blink when they strapped her down, didn't flinch when Maxwell rubbed disinfectant across her abdomen. She whispered once, "Is this the spa?" Big Papa leaned in, brushed her hair behind her ear and said, "Yes." "A very exclusive one?" The surgery lasted 38 minutes. Dr. Maxwell removed both kidneys, sealed the incisions, and injected her with a paralytic to keep her unconscious. Her vitals dropped slowly. Not enough to raise alarm, but just enough to suggest her body wouldn't make it much longer. "She's no good anymore," Maxwell muttered. "We pushed her too far." Big Papa didn't care. The kidneys were perfect. They cleaned the room, bagged her organs, and prepared the body for disposal. At 3:14 a.m., they loaded her body into a cooler box, drove to the edge of the Songor Lagoon, and rowed out in a small boat. Big Papa tied stones to her ankles and wrapped a plastic sheet around her upper body to prevent her from floating. "You had potential," he whispered as he tipped her into the water. "But potential doesn't mean profit." The lagoon swallowed her quietly. Later that morning, her friends at the salon began to worry. By evening, her mother had filed a missing person report. Police dismissed it as a possible runaway case, just another girl chasing big money. No one knew she was beneath the lagoon, her kidneys packed in a refrigerated box, en route to a private hospital in Prague. Her name was Vanessa, a final-year university student at KNUST in Kumasi. 23, beautiful, and living a life far more expensive than her student budget allowed. She had multiple sponsors and side flings, including a struggling boyfriend named Frank who thought he was her everything. But Frank was just background music. Vanessa needed luxury, she needed survival. And when her latest sugar daddy got arrested for money laundering, she was left scrambling to pay her rent and send money home for her little sister's hospital bills. That was when Big Papa arrived in Kumasi. He was scouting fresh prey. His Accra routine was getting predictable. His presence in Kumasi was as loud as his outfit: gold rings, designer slippers, oversized agbada, and his signature black Bentley with custom plates. At a popular rooftop lounge, he spotted her, Vanessa, arguing over the phone while sipping a glass of cheap rosé. "I said I'll send you the money on Monday. Stop stressing me," she hissed into the phone. Big Papa smiled. A stressed beauty was always easy prey. He approached her casually, leaning on the marble bar. "Stress looks ugly on a beautiful woman," he said, with a sly grin. Vanessa looked up, rolled her eyes. "Who are you?" "A friend, unless you want me to be more." She scoffed, but he waved the bartender over and paid for her entire tab. Then came the waiter with a gold-label champagne bottle. "From the gentleman," he said. Vanessa softened. He introduced himself as an international investor based in Ghana and Dubai. He claimed he was looking to support young female entrepreneurs. The more he spoke, the more Vanessa listened. Within minutes, he had her laughing. Within an hour, they were sitting together. Within a day, they were chatting on WhatsApp every hour. 3 days later, he invited her to a private villa outside the city. The villa wasn't a home. It was a trap, a cover, one of many scattered facilities used by Big Papa's syndicate. Clean, quiet, remote, and surgically equipped. When Vanessa arrived, she was dressed to impress. Curly weave, red lipstick, body-hugging jumpsuit, long red nails. "You're stunning," Big Papa said as he opened the door for her. He offered her wine. She refused. He smiled. Smart girl. But he didn't need the wine. He had something more efficient. He reached into his pocket and handed her a black and silver business card. "Take this. My assistant will use this to process your Dubai visa." The moment she touched the card, her fate was sealed. It had been coated with a thin layer of scopolamine, a dangerous drug known as the devil's breath. Once absorbed through the skin or inhaled, it could render a person completely submissive. Victims would follow any command without resistance, forgetting everything once the drug wore off. Within 90 seconds, Vanessa's eyelids began to flutter. Her speech slurred. "You okay?" Big Papa asked. She nodded slowly. "Yeah. I feel sleepy." He leaned in. "Do you trust me, Vanessa?" "Yes," she murmured. "Good girl." Dr. Maxwell was already in the basement, prepping. Vanessa was wheeled down, still dressed, but unresponsive. The surgical table was already sterile, the tools laid out. "Which organ?" Dr. Maxwell asked, not even glancing up. "Right kidney," Big Papa replied. "She looks healthy." The doctor worked efficiently. Within 45 minutes, the kidney was extracted, sealed in a preservation pouch, and stored in a portable cooler for transport. Vanessa's wound was stitched carefully. She was still breathing, barely, but unconscious. Big Papa stood over her with an envelope. "Here's your thank you," he whispered, and placed 10,000 cedis on her chest. But he wasn't done. He nodded to the two masked guards, and they wrapped her limp body in a tarpaulin. "Let's go," he said coldly. They drove under the cover of night, taking the back roads past Ejisu. The river was silent, isolated, a perfect grave. The guards tied bricks to her waist and ankles. Then, without ceremony, they rolled her body into the cold water. It sank instantly. No splash, no cry. Just darkness, swallowing another secret. The next morning, the calm river carried a silent weight. The locals who came to fish found nothing, but Frank, her boyfriend, was in full panic mode. Vanessa wasn't responding to texts. Her line was off. Her location wasn't updating. He reported her missing after 2 days. When her bloated body was finally discovered near a riverbank days later, it was barely recognizable. But the autopsy revealed the truth, a missing kidney. That made it victim number 10 for Big Papa this month. But what he didn't know was that the authorities had just flagged the sudden pattern of organless female corpses in Ghana's water bodies, and a task force had just been assembled. Big Papa sat behind the tinted glass of his luxury SUV, swirling a glass of brandy, his wide fingers glittering with rings. His once confident eyes now held flickers of anxiety. The operation was getting riskier, and Raphael had delayed the last shipment of scopolamine. The Colombian's recent silence wasn't helping. Suddenly his encrypted phone buzzed. It was a voice message from Raphael. "Amigo, customs heat is rising. They seized a package in Brazil meant for Nigeria. We must slow things down. I'll send the next batch with the boat crew. ETA, 2 weeks. Big Papa cursed under his breath. 2 weeks without scopolamine meant 2 weeks without fresh harvests. His clients in Germany and Ukraine were getting impatient. They had already made part payments for a pair of healthy kidneys and a liver. Delay meant trouble. He called Dr. Maxwell immediately. "Maxwell, we have a problem," he said sharply. "What now?" Dr. Maxwell's voice came tired, irritated. "No scopo. Raphael said 2 weeks. Something about customs trouble." There was a long pause. "Then we halt operations. I can't work without the drug, Papa. We can't risk a girl waking up mid-surgery again. Remember Linda?" Big Papa grunted. "We'll find a way. Even if we have to get some of the sleeping pills we used to use before Raphael came along." "That was sloppy," Maxwell hissed. "They don't immobilize like scopolamine, and they leave residue. We're not amateurs." Big Papa hung up. He turned to his bodyguard, Slim. "Find me a girl tonight. A good one. No drugs. Just charm. We need one more before the weekends." That night, Slim drove Big Papa to a posh lounge in the airport residential area. Unlike the clubs downtown, this place was reserved for the elite, the kind of place where girls came dressed like Instagram models, and half the crowd was sponsored by men older than their fathers. That's where they found her. Her name was Lydia, a 27-year-old socialite with a scandalous past. She'd been trending on Twitter a few months back after her leaked videos with a politician surfaced online, but she wasn't broken. She was thirsty. She had debts, the kind that made girls desperate. Big Papa spotted her at the bar, alone, sipping expensive rosé. He smiled and approached, dressed like a corporate sugar daddy. "Mind if I join you?" She looked him up and down. "If you're buying the next bottle." They talked. She laughed. He bought her 2 more bottles. He spoke about business ventures and travel. By the end of the night, she was in his car. They reached the safe house, one of the newer ones hidden between uncompleted buildings outside East Legon. There was no scopolamine, no pills. Big Papa resorted to what he called the old way, mixing a strong sleeping agent into a glass of vintage wine. Lydia passed out shortly after her second sip. Dr. Maxwell didn't waste time. As always, he wore his sterile gloves, surgical mask and headlight. The procedure took under 3 hours. Her kidneys, both, were in good condition. Heart was healthy, but not needed at the moment. The next morning, her lifeless body was stuffed into a black duffel bag, weights tied to her legs. Slim and another accomplice took her body in a fishing canoe and dumped it in the shallow stretch of the River Densu. The current would eventually drag it toward Ada, but they made sure the bag was weighted enough not to float. No witnesses, no cameras. The cracks begin to show. Maureen sat across from the CID officer at the regional headquarters, her hands trembling as she clutched her sister's photo. "My sister isn't like that," she said, her voice low but firm. "She's not the type to disappear for days without saying anything." The officer glanced at the photo. Vanessa? The girl who was last seen leaving a club in Osu 2 weeks ago? When was the last time you saw her? Saturday, 2 weekends ago, around 10:45 p.m. She said she was going out with this rich man. She sounded excited, said he promised her a trip to Dubai. The officer leaned in. "Do you have his name?" "No." Maureen shook her head. "But I remember the car." That made the officer's pen freeze mid-scribble. "You saw the car?" "Yes, he comes every weekend. Same car, a deep purple Porsche Panamera, very flashy. I took a picture one time, because it felt odd." She pulled out her phone and scrolled, then handed it to the officer. The photo was slightly grainy, but the number plate was clear enough. The officer's eyes narrowed. One small thread, but it was enough. Within hours, the CID's cybercrime unit ran the number through the DVLA database. The car was registered under a fake name, Kwabena Mensah, but the photo ID attached to the file was unmistakable. It was Big Papa. Notorious in the underground, he had slipped through investigations for years. But now they had something solid. Within the next 3 days, a special team was formed. Cyber tracking, surveillance, undercover agents. They were to observe and record everything, not to arrest. Not yet. Just watch. They tapped into CCTV feeds from the clubs he frequented, Frontback, Carbon, Plot 7, and they began to build a profile. He always came alone, left with a girl, always different, never seen again. A pattern was forming. Then came the decision to plant someone inside, an undercover operation. Her name was Serwaa, tall, gorgeous, smart, and a trained police operative. She had been embedded in worse missions, but this one was different. She wasn't just bait. She had to survive. Before the mission, she was given a tiny earpiece and a designer earring with a hidden transmitter. Every word she heard, every whisper she caught, would be fed directly to the task force stationed at a nearby van. More importantly, she was administered a newly developed anti-scopolamine drug. It was still in clinical trials developed by a private pharmaceutical team working with the police. The drug, when taken an hour before exposure, would neutralize any effects of scopolamine within the bloodstream. Serwaa rehearsed her lines, learned the seductive postures, the flirtatious giggle, the casual, clueless girl act. And on Saturday night, she was planted at Plot 7. She wore a short, glittering dress and heels that could break an ankle. Her lips glistened, her nails shimmered, her eyes scanned. And then he entered. Big Papa, in a velvet kaftan and gold chain that looked heavy enough to strangle someone. His eyes scanned the room like a lion seeking prey. And when he saw her, he smiled, just like they hoped. He approached her casually. "You look bored," he said, his voice deep and warm. Serwaa smiled back, twirling a strand of her braids. "Only because I'm waiting for something exciting." He laughed. "Maybe I can help with that." The conversation flowed. Drinks followed. She let him wipe her nose with his handkerchief, the one laced with scopolamine. The chemical dose was strong, almost invisible on the fabric. He smiled when he saw her blink slowly and tilt her head in false drowsiness. "You okay?" he asked, testing her. "Yes, Papa," she whispered with a dazed smile. "Let's go." He believed her. Outside, the police van tracked his car as it left the club and drove across the city. They didn't intercept, not yet. They needed everything: the location, the voices, the faces, and Serwaa had just unlocked the door to the heart of the nightmare. The Porsche cruised through the silent outskirts of Accra, far from the buzzing city lights. Serwaa sat beside Big Papa, feigning sleepiness, her body slightly slouched, as though the drug had taken full effect. In truth, her senses were razor-sharp, and her heart thudded against her chest. Inside her earring, the tiny microphone transmitted every word, every sound, directly to the police van tailing them from a discreet distance. Big Papa tapped the steering wheel, glancing at her with a sly grin. "You know," he murmured, "most girls don't even realize what's happening. Not until it's too late." Serwaa didn't respond. She blinked slowly and gave a lazy smile, deepening the illusion. He chuckled to himself. "That's the beauty of scopolamine. A little whiff and boom, mind gone. You'll do anything I say and wake up rich, if you're lucky." The van came to a stop near a fenced compound surrounded by thick bushes and an electronic gate. There were no visible guards, only a set of high-definition cameras and a small biometric scanner on the side of the gate. Big Papa leaned out, pressed his thumb against the scanner, and the gate slowly opened. The compound looked like a residential mansion, peaceful and quiet from the outside. But inside, it was something else entirely. Serwaa stepped out of the car, wobbling slightly as though under the drug's influence. "Come, sweetheart," Big Papa said, gently guiding her through a rear entrance that led into a long hallway with white-tiled floors. The smell of antiseptic lingered in the air, mixed with a faint metallic scent. Blood. She counted the security cameras in her head, 2 above the hallway, 1 by the surgical room entrance. A nurse in scrubs walked past, barely looking at her. Dr. Maxwell was waiting at the end of the corridor. He was already dressed in surgical gear, hands gloved, face partially covered. His eyes studied Serwaa. "She ready?" he asked, looking at Big Papa. Big Papa nodded. Scopolamine should be kicking in fully by now. She followed without question. Dr. Maxwell approached Serwaa and lifted her chin with a gloved hand. "Pretty one. Good body mass index, healthy vitals. I think we may get a good set out of her." "Excellent," Big Papa said, his voice satisfied. "We need 2 good kidneys. Raphael says the European client in Prague is paying triple." "Then let's not waste time." Dr. Maxwell turned to the nurse. "Prep her." Serwaa allowed herself to be led into the cold surgical room. She pretended to struggle weakly like someone confused and disoriented. Inside the room were 2 other women, unconscious on stretchers, IV drips hanging beside them. One of them looked like a university girl, no older than 20. Serwaa's eyes burned at the sight, but she kept her cool. The nurse approached her with a sedative. The moment she lifted the needle, Serwaa made her move. She slapped the nurse's hand, sending the syringe flying. At the same time, she stomped hard on a red panic button hidden under her heel, a concealed transmitter that sent a coded signal to the police command center. Dr. Maxwell staggered back in shock. "What the hell?" Big Papa's voice echoed from the hallway. "What's going on in there?" Before Serwaa could respond, the doors burst open with a bang. SWAT operatives in black tactical gear stormed the compound. "Drop your weapons!" one of them shouted. Gunshots rang out in the hallway. 2 of Big Papa's armed guards opened fire, but they were no match for the well-trained unit. Within seconds, both were neutralized. Dr. Maxwell tried to flee through the back door, but was pinned to the floor by 2 officers. Serwaa helped the unconscious girls onto stretchers while other officers combed through the rooms. They found stacks of cash, vials of scopolamine, surgical records, and a hidden database containing names and dates, evidence of every victim that had passed through the facility. Big Papa was cuffed, bleeding from a shot to the leg, still protesting. "You pigs don't know who you're dealing with." But the game was over. Back at the police headquarters, under intense interrogation, Big Papa broke. He told them about the real horrors, the river dump sites, the lagoon disposals, the deep concrete pits behind the facility. Within the next 48 hours, divers were dispatched to retrieve the decomposing bodies from the Volta River and the Corley Lagoon. The bodies were tagged, photographed, and transferred to the forensic unit for proper identification. News spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed, "Organ trafficking ring busted in Accra." Police rescue girls from surgical death den, bodies recovered from lagoon in massive trafficking scandal. But even as the public gasped, one name kept coming up. Raphael, the scopolamine supplier from Colombia.